So I know you've heard of casting from a book, from your deity, from a familiar, and from your inner charismatic being. But have you ever heard of casting from your clothes? Ever in the history of everdom have you heard of casting from your clothes? Well, if not, here you go. Let's talk about it.
Dun 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 dun. B-sides.
Hello and welcome to Pathfinder B-Sides. I am your host, Professor Phoenix, and today we're going to be going over the SILKSWORN, which is an archetype for the occultist. I know there's a lot of you out there going like, bruh, what is it with you and all of these occult archetypes? Like, no one uses those. Well, you're about to, because this one's actually pretty cool. I like it. It's kind of nifty. As always, let's start off with the flavor text from the D20 PFSRD. Occultists who recognize that flashy garb and fashionable accoutrements can be just as powerful as the psychically charged relics in the right situations are known as the SILKSWORN. They draw their power from wearing luxurious garments, though they often keep their abilities secret. Real good. So let's start off legit. It's the class skills that a SILKSWORN add-in are going to be bluff and knowledge nobility instead of knowledge engineering and knowledge planes. That's going to come back into play later. We'll talk about that, but this alters the occultist class skills. Next up is the proficiencies. A SILKSWORN is proficient with only simple weapons and isn't proficient with any armor or shields, which is a big difference from, them being able to wear light and medium armors normally, because it's psychic spells, and the psychic spells don't really care what kind of armor you wear. So it's a little bit different, but then again, we're just trying to be flashy. Next up is spells. A SILKSWORN's spells are considered arcane spells, not psychic spells, and his spells use verbal and somatic components instead of thought and emotion components. This alters the occultist's spells. And for your cantrips, each time he selects an implement school, a SILKSWORN gains one cantrip, or a 0-level arcane spell, including when he selects a school that he already learned to use. These cantrips otherwise behave as an occultist's knacks. This ability replaces knacks, so yeah. Next, we're going to be talking about the implements. When a SILKSWORN chooses an implement school, he does not choose a specific object. Instead, a SILKSWORN must be wearing an ostentatious garment or magic item worth 10 gold or more of the appropriate type and in the appropriate slot. Abjuration for the wrists, conjuration for the shoulders, divination for the eyes, enchantment for the neck, evocation for the hands, illusion for the head, necromancy for the chest, and transmutation for the feet. A SILKSWORN who does not meet this requirement is treated as lacking the appropriate implement for the purpose of his class features, including spellcasting. This alters the occultist's implements. So what that means is, for your wrists, you better have some cufflinks with like some jade or something in it. Your shoulders, you're gonna be wearing like a cape where you're like, you hold the cape out in front of you and then like you pull the cape back and you have a pigeon in your hands or whatever, right? For your divination, you've got your eyes, your spectacles, so that way you can like just barely move them to adjust them, and really you're starting up some dark vision or something. Again, for your neck, your enchantment, your neck has this gigantic ruby, right? Like the ruby gem. It's just sitting there on your neck, and like you're like, look into my neck and suddenly dominate person. It's different. You do the flavor how you want, but this lets your occultist be your occultist. You could always have dueling magicians or something with different special abilities for your implements. Just my opinion. Next up, we've got mental focus. The SILKSWORN's available mental focus is equal to his occultist level, plus his intelligence modifier, plus his charisma modifier. This ability alters mental focus. At first level, the SILKSWORN gains access to 4 implement schools instead of 2. At second and every 4 occultist levels thereafter, the SILKSWORN gains access to an additional implement school to a maximum of 9 schools at 18th level. At 8th, 12th, and 16th levels, the SILKSWORN increases the number of spells of each level he can cast each day by 1. This does not allow the SILKSWORN to cast spells of a level he does not yet have access to. This ability alters implements and the occultist weapon and armor proficiencies and replaces outside contact. Next up, we've got SILKSWORN Eloquence, which is an extraordinary ability. At 8th level, a SILKSWORN gains a +1 bonus on bluff and diplomacy checks for each magical article of clothing occupying one of his implement school's magic item slots. This ability replaces magic circles. So you're going to be getting a +1 for each one of these bad boys going into your bluff and your diplomacy. So like when you're trying to do the sleight of hand to show that people can't see, or you're like, I've got nothing behind my cape, you can actually bluff that. Whenever you're trying to talk with the local magistrate about the problems that they have going on in town and you're trying to get assistance, you can actually be diplomatic about it and tell the truth as you go. You don't have to be a conniving con man. You can just be a dude trying to do good stuff. Let you play both sides of the field, in my opinion. That replaces magic circles. Next up, we've got the SILKSWORN Deception, which is a supernatural ability. At 12th level, a SILKSWORN can hide his speech and gestures within his extravagant clothing. Whenever the SILKSWORN casts a spell, he can attempt a bluff check opposed by sense motive checks from those observing him. Those who fail are unaware of his spellcasting, unless an effect obviously originates from the SILKSWORN. This ability replaces binding circles. So what this is basically, this is you like pulling back your cape and wiggling your fingers, and no one knows that you're doing anything, unless of course you're doing like a cone of cold that starts from you, or you're, you know, shooting fireballs or disintegration rays from your fingertips, or well, I guess from your feet, because that's the transmutation side, but you get what I mean. Like, don't be obvious about it. Say the fireball comes from nowhere and it just pops up instead of it leaving from your hands. That's what I would do. I mean, generally speaking, fireball works without having to worry about cover. So, technically speaking, it doesn't originate from you. It just pops up out of nowhere. So, that's my opinion. I've been wrong before. Next up, we've got the SILKSWORN Arcana. At 16th level, when a SILKSWORN casts a spell while wearing a magic article of clothing in the appropriate school's magic item slot, the spell's saving throw DC increases by 2. This ability replaces fast circles. So like, when you're casting a spell while wearing a magic article of clothing in the appropriate... Basically, if you're wearing shoes that do transmutation stuff, the DC is going to increase by 2, so like, make sure you're wearing slippers of spider climb or something. I mean, I don't need to tell you how to do the job, just do the job, right? Next up, we've got Implement Mastery, which is going to be your capstone. Not a lot of archetypes actually deal with capstones, so this is nice. We've got Implement Mastery, which is another supernatural ability. At 20th level, a SILKSWORN chooses 2 implement schools instead of 1, and Implement Mastery's effects apply to both. The SILKSWORN gains 4 additional points of mental focus for each school's implement. This alters the occultist's implement mastery. So that's pretty good, right? So like you get to choose 2 schools instead of just the 1, and you can just be amazing with everything, man. That's the dream. I know there's a lot of dreams out there, but that's the dream. That's the dream you pick if you're an occultist. So I have not seen this show, but my friend told me about it. It's called The Magicians, and apparently this archetype was made for that show. Like, I don't have any first-hand experience. You guys go down into the comments and tell me how legit that is. But ultimately, I'd like to thank my patron, Mr. Matty Boombalatti, for offering this one up as a really good archetype video for us to do. You get 10 points, man. Anyways, if you like the video, go ahead and drop a like. If you want more, hit that subscribe and notification bell so you could be the first one to get in on it. Next up, there's also the Patreon if you want to help us out. and getting our act together. Anything you want me to do, you'll get first crack at it. After that, there's the Discord and the Facebook page. If you want to get argumentative with me and tell me how wrong I am on something, it's not often I'm wrong, but I'm okay with it when I am. Please point it out to me. Tell me. And then finally, we have a Twitter where I'm only slightly annoying to people except for when I'm not. So 10 points out there too. You guys take it easy and keep gaming.